How's it going, James?
Hey, Ben, how are you, buddy?
Good. It feels weird not to be outside Lash. I almost just drove over to just do it on my laptop from out there. But
Yeah, it is strange. There's no doubt about it. But I appreciate everybody getting on.
I want to take you back a few years to 2012 when you were at Vanderbilt. You opened against South Carolina when South Carolina was ranked 8th and then went to Northwestern. And I'm curious, what are the challenges of the lead up to a year when maybe you don't have the sort of traditional, the few weeks to kind of ease yourself into things? Obviously, you take non-conference seriously, but there's a big difference between, having those games and maybe jumping right into it. What are sort of the challenges when you know that's what you're facing?
Yeah, it's different. There's going to be a lot of things that are different, and we haven't traditionally scheduled that way, not only since I've been here, but before I got here. Typically some out-of-conference games to start the season. So it is very different. And I think there's a lot of things, Ben, that are different. It's opening with a conference opponent right from week one. Very different than the NFL, where you typically would get preseason games. Very different than college, where you would typically, not all the time, but typically get out-of-conference games. And then obviously we also have the stadium issue. Obviously we all know Beaver Stadium with no one in there is very different, and not just for the visiting team, coming, also for what we're used to. So, we're going to start practicing like that. We're going to start practicing in Beaver Stadium a little bit more. We're going to start turning the music off, where usually we spend so much time trying to get prepared for crowd noise and things like that. These are all things that, we're just going to have to get used to, kind of the new normal, Ben.
Perfect project. Sorry, first let me unmute you. There you go.
Thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Parth.
Throughout this extended offseason, what are the things you've seen from Sean Clifford that have shown you that he's ready to take that next step as a quarterback?
I've kind of given this answer before, where, I don't necessarily felt like some quarterbacks have a glaring weakness in one area, and you say this is the obvious area that we need to get better in. And I think for Sean, it's just continuing to grow in his total development a little bit better, really in each area. And I think that naturally comes with age and maturity and experience. And I think obviously him and Coach Shiraka have clicked, so that helps. It's also the rapport with the wide receivers and the tight ends. Obviously, that's going to be something that's very important. And that's a challenge, because with us not having a bunch of production returning at the wide receiver position, that typically would have been something that we would have really emphasized over the summer, with the throwing sessions and things like that. But just everything has been different. Not having spring ball, not having the traditional summer workouts, those were areas that we knew we needed to be ready for. So I think it's one expectation for week one. It's going to be a different expectation for week 4. But I think you're just going to see a more experienced, more seasoned guy that I think is a little bit more confident, a little bit more comfortable, even in an adjusted system.
Audrey Snyder.
Hey, James. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
You too, Audrey.
Going off, you just mentioned the wide receivers. We learned today that John Dunmore is withdrawn from Penn State. How long have you guys kind of been planning on operating without John? And is there any expectation or any possibility that he could potentially return at some point?
Yeah, we'll just take it one day at a time. I'm not sure, as with things like this over 6 years. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of specifics and details. That's not fair to John and his family, and I can't predict what the future holds.
Andrew Porterview.
Hey James, thanks for doing this.
Andrew.
With this off season and bringing in a lot of new coaches, obviously you haven't seen or haven't interacted with them the same way as in years past. But what have you seen from Coach Stubblefield in your interactions with him? And what type of energy do you think he'll bring to the coaching staff?
So your Wi-Fi is struggling a little bit. I think you asked about Coach Stubblefield and the wide receivers. Is that correct?
Yeah, Coach Stubblefield's energy and what do you think he'll bring to the program?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously he's an experienced wide receivers coach, and then he obviously has experience in the Big Ten. Obviously had a great playing career, and I think that helps. It really does. I think Coach Troutwine's playing career has helped him. With our current offensive lineman, and I think it's the same thing with Coach Stubblefield. So now you can take your years of experience as a coach and couple that with your years experience as a player, and then for him specifically in this league, and it's funny, I give him a hard time, sometimes, because, and I mean it as a compliment, really, is he wasn't the most gifted, talented guy. And you talk about a guy that, I think is the all-time leading receiver in NCAA history when he got done playing. And he didn't do it, being 6'4", and he didn't do it by running 4.3. He did it by having a really good understanding of defenses. He had a really good understanding of how he fit in the offense, and understanding, how to run routes and how to get open, and was very successful at what he did and how he did it. So I think it's been a really nice combination. He's a guy that I've known for a long time, that I've been tracking for a long time. I wouldn't necessarily say Phil fell into that category, but Taylor did. Taylor actually came and visited us when we first got here at Penn State years ago. So I've been pleased with him. He's aggressive on the field with our guys. I've really enjoyed watching him coach and interact with our guys. And the interesting thing too is I go around to the players and after a couple months and ask them their opinion, especially the vets, the guys that have been around for a while and they know. And the feedback has been really good.
Mark Brennan?
Hey, James, can you tell us how you approach things quarterback-wise a little bit further down the depth chart in a season like this? Is there anything different that you maybe have to do extra to get guys like Taquan and Micah ready? And how are those two guys coming along respectively?
Yeah, I think obviously there's some things that you could look at there and you could make some arguments, but at the end of the day, you better make sure that your number one gets enough reps to play, and your number two as well, and then whatever you can get your number three, you got to do it. And for us, the fours and the fives, those guys have got to do it mentally, and really your number three has got to do it mentally. He's got to stand back there and take mental reps and go through his footwork and his reads as much as he possibly can. And I understand your point. You could move down the depth chart. I get that, but again, you can't start solving problem C and D before focusing on A and B. You gotta deal with what's in front of you right now, and then be able to adjust when the time comes and it's necessary.
Got time for a couple more questions for Coach John Petishnock.
John?
John?
Yeah, there we go. It's just needed to be unmuted. Hey, James, appreciate the time tonight.
There you are. Trying to find you.
Hey, both Tariq and Keaton, they talked last week about how much they've learned from working with Terry Smith. So I wanted to ask, what's the overall value that Terry brings to the program, especially considering that he's also a letterman and has so many connections to high school football in the state?
Yeah, I think Terry's been one of our more important hires. When you take a job, obviously you want to have familiarity with the state, which I did growing up in Pennsylvania. You want to have familiarity with the conference and the style of play and the different venues. But at the end of the day, there's also that community knowledge. the historical knowledge that's so important here at Penn State, and being able to bridge, some of those generations. And Terry has been instrumental in that. Terry is a very, very good football coach. As a head coach, he did it at the high school level. I think Terry could be a head coach in college as well. His experience coaching and playing wide receiver, I think, helps him at defensive back. I also think Terry, Tim Banks, and Viangelo Bentley are a really nice combination in terms of playing experience, in terms of coaching experience. Tim Banks being a coordinator for, I think, over 11 years, and Terry's expertise now, at the corner position. I think they do a damn good job. You look at the success that we've had in the secondary, and if you look specifically in terms of producing guys to go on and play at the next level in the NFL, you look at what that list was like before we got here compared to what it's like now. They've done a great job, and Terry just helps in so many different ways. He's associate head coach. He's coaching the corners. He's defensive recruiting coordinator. I think he's a really good sounding board for me and the players. And obviously his connection with the lettermen and the community. You got to remember, too, the other thing that's cool about Terry, he's 3 generations. His dad went to school here. Terry went to school here. And then his son came here as one of the most highly recruited defensive backs in the country, came here and had a great career, and then went on to the NFL and had a great career there. And then we hired him back and was working for us. And then Terry's daughter, just graduated, from the LifeLink program as well. So there's obviously deep roots and deep connections.
Last question will go to Dave Melander Jr.
Hey, James, two-part question to you. One, what is your reaction to Governor Wolf announcing the gathering thing, and where it's going to be this year without having any fans in the stadium?
I'd say that one more time. I'm sorry.
He asked if I did not have fans at the game.
Say it again.
Not have fans at the game, what it would be like.
Yeah. Well, I think where we're at right now, I think the Big Ten would like to have the parents at the game, so we're expecting that to happen now, especially now that in the state of Pennsylvania, we think we can make that work. Before, although I think the Big Ten was trying to do that, get parents to the games, depending on your state, you may not be able to pull it off. But now with the Governor Wolf and the state of Pennsylvania making these decisions, and then hopefully the Big Ten being able to make this work with the parents, that we can at least get that done. I think that's from day one here at Penn State with myself and Sandy Barber. That's been our priority. How can we take care of our parents? And have tried to look at a bunch of different creative ways to get that done. So we're excited about that, and then all the rest of the stuff is kind of outside of our control. There has been some discussions that we've had that I think have been really cool. Is in some ways we're going to get back to the purest form of football. Where you're playing in some field or some field connected to a school or connected to a church. And, it's your parents that are sitting there watching, and it's the most, it's the purest form of football. I remember sitting in the car, with my mom driving me to the game, and she's smoking a Pall Mall, and I got my full equipment on, and everything but my helmet sitting next to her. And you get out, you run out of the car with the full uniform on and put your helmet on, and you get going. So in some ways, I'm hoping, that our players, 2 things. Number one, that we get back to that special time when the game was just so pure. You just played it for the love of the game and not about the fans and not about any of those other things. And then I think there's also that part that we're so blessed to be at Penn State and play in front of 107,000 fans. And I don't think anybody takes it for granted, but if you did, I think this is kind of a wake up call to all of us, that not take what we have here in Happy Valley and at Penn State for granted. And that's all of us. That's coaches, players, fans, local community. I hope the media. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I hope this is kind of an opportunity to kind of take a deep breath and realize how fortunate we all are.